There are rules for driving on Route 666. I got them from a waitress who never said a word, written on a napkin stained with something that definitely wasn't coffee. The first rule was simple. Don't stop for anyone, no matter how much they look like her. I had no idea who her was. Now I do. They don't call it Route 666 anymore. Back in 2003, the powers that be decided to rebrand it, slapping US 491 on the signs. I guess they figured a new name would calm people down, wash away the highway's sins, and scrub the blood from the asphalt. But a name doesn't change what a thing is. Ask any long-haul trucker who's driven that 200-mile stretch of desolation, and they'll tell you its real name: the Devil's Highway. I'd been driving rigs for 20 years. I figured I'd seen it all. Freak blizzards in the Rockies, 100-car pileups in California fog, detours through towns that time forgot. But I had a perfect record of one thing. I had never, ever taken a load down 666. The old-timers, the guys with faces like road maps and coffee for blood, they told stories. Stories you'd laugh off as campfire talk until you saw the look in their eyes. They talked about phantom trucks that run you off the road, their cabs lit with an infernal glow. They whispered about strange floating lights and gaps in time, where you'd lose hours arriving at your destination with no memory of the drive. But you know how it is. Freight has to move, and my dispatcher was in a bind. A priority load to Salt Lake City, and the only route that made any sense was the shortcut. The Devil's Highway. I told myself they were just stories. Fuel for lonely nights and overactive imaginations. I was a professional, not some ghost hunter. The sun was just starting to dip below the horizon when I passed the first old, faded sign. Someone had scratched out 491, and underneath, in blood-red spray paint, were the three numbers that started it all: 666. The air grew still. The endless sky bled into a deep, bruised purple. My radio, which had been playing classic rock just fine, dissolved into a solid hiss of static, and a cold, heavy feeling settled deep in my gut. It wasn't just loneliness. It was the feeling of being watched. The first real sign of trouble was my fuel gauge. It was dropping way, way faster than it should have. I did the math in my head. I should have had plenty to make the next major truck stop. But the needle was already kissing the red line. Panic, cold and sharp, started pricking at my skin. Running out of fuel out here isn't an inconvenience. It can be a death sentence. And just when that wave of real fear started to hit, I saw it. A single flickering neon sign off the side of the road. Gas. It was one of those old, forgotten places. Looked like it had been there since the highway was first paved, and a strong wind could knock it over. But the light was on. I pulled my rig onto the cracked concrete. The place was dead quiet. No other trucks, no cars, just the rusted-out husks of a few ancient vehicles sinking into the desert soil. I killed the engine, and the silence that rushed in was deafening. I walked into the diner attached to the station. A bell over the door didn't even jingle. Inside, a few people sat at the counter and in booths, just staring blankly into space. Wide, unfocused eyes. Not one of them blinked when I walked in. The only movement was an old man behind the counter, bent with age, wiping the same spot over and over with a dirty rag. A waitress came over to me. She was young, but her eyes looked 1,000 years old, filled with the sadness I couldn't place. She didn't speak, just pointed to an empty booth. I sat, my unease growing with every silent tick of the clock that wasn't there. She brought me a cup of black coffee I didn't order. As she set it down, her hand trembled, and she slid a folded napkin across the table. Her eyes met mine for just a second, and I saw a desperate, silent plea in them. Then she was gone, back into the kitchen. The other customers just kept staring. I unfolded the napkin. Scrawled on it in shaky handwriting was a list. I just stared at the words. This had to be a joke, right? Some prank they pull on truckers passing through. But the waitress's eyes, that suffocating silence, something told me this was dead serious. I never touched the coffee. I left a 20 on the table, walked out, and filled the tank. The pump was as silent as everything else. As I pulled back onto the highway, I glanced in my mirror. The gas station's lights flickered once, then went out, plunging the entire place into darkness like it had never even been there. I looked down at the napkin on the passenger seat. There were 7 rules. The first was the one already burning a hole in my mind. 1. Don't stop for anyone, no matter how much they look like her. Who was her? I found out 20 miles later. Bathed in my high beams, there was a figure on the shoulder of the road. A woman in a simple white dress. As I got closer, my heart seized. It was impossible. It was my wife, Sarah. She's been gone 5 years now, cancer. But there she was, looking exactly as I remembered her, one hand raised, her face a mask of confusion and fear. My foot just went for the brake. My mind screamed at me. It's her. Something's wrong. She needs you. But the rule on the napkin echoed louder. No matter how much they look like her. Tears were streaming down my face, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I kept my foot on the gas and blew right past her. In the rearview mirror, I watched her expression twist from confusion into pure, unholy rage. Her form flickered, and for a split second, she wasn't Sarah at all, but something gaunt, twisted, and horrifying. I didn't look back again. Then came the second rule. 2. The static on the radio is a voice. Don't listen to what it tells you. Thing is, I'd already turned the radio off. It came back on by itself. The static was thick, but underneath it, a voice was whispering. It knew my name. It whispered about my regrets, the time I missed with Sarah and the kids, all the lonely nights on the road. It told me I was tired. It told me there was a rest stop just a few miles ahead, a warm bed waiting. Just pull over. The voice was so soothing, so persuasive, and I felt my eyelids get heavy. I shook my head, fighting it, and slammed the power button again. The whispers just kept seeping from the speakers. I had to focus on the hum of the engine, the white lines, anything but that voice. By now, the desert night was pitch black. The moon was just a sickly sliver offering zero comfort. That's when I saw them. Movement, just at the edge of my headlights. Yellow eyes, dozens of them, just glowing in the dark. Rule number 3. 3. If you see yellow eyes in the dark, speed up, never slow down. They were a pack, not coyotes, not wolves. They were huge, dark shapes, and they were fast, running with this unnatural speed that easily kept pace with my rig. Hellhounds. I heard them lunging at my tires, the sound of claws scraping against steel and rubber. My heart was hammering, but the rule was clear. I floored it. The engine screamed as I pushed the truck faster than it wanted to go, the hounds of hell snapping at my wheels until finally their yellow eyes just faded back into the dark. I was shaking, soaked in a cold sweat. Then came the tapping. A light, rhythmic tap, 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 on my passenger side window. Rule 4. 4. Ignore the tapping on the passenger side window. It isn't the wind. I didn't look. I couldn't. All those old stories about skinwalkers flooded my brain. The tapping got louder, more insistent. Then scratching. Then a sound that chilled me to the bone. A child sobbing, coming from right behind me in the sleeper cab. Rule 5. 5. You will hear a child crying in the sleeper cab. There is no child. My blood ran cold. Part of me wanted to slam on the brakes, jump out, and just run screaming into the desert. But I just gripped the wheel tighter, my eyes locked on the highway, whispering those rules to myself like a prayer. And then, of course, it got worse. My mirrors exploded with light. A massive semi, an old Peterbilt with a grill like a set of jagged teeth, was barreling down on me, flashing its high beams, laying on the horn. It was impossibly close, its engine roaring like a monster. Rule 6 was the longest. 6. A truck will flash its high beams behind you. Do not speed up, do not pull over, do not look in your mirrors. Maintain your speed and stare straight ahead. This was the hardest one. Every single instinct I have as a trucker screamed at me to do something. Speed up, pull over, at least check my mirror to see how close he is. But the napkin was absolute. I held my speed, my eyes glued to the road ahead, my whole body rigid with terror. The Phantom rig's horn blared, but it wasn't a horn. It was a chorus of human screams. It nudged my trailer, trying to push me off the road. The temptation to just glance in the mirror was physically painful. It felt like an eternity. That demonic truck riding my tail, its lights burning a hole in the back of my skull. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the light in my mirrors was gone. The screaming horn faded. There was only silence. Section 6. The False Dawn. I just kept driving. I was a hollowed-out shell. After a while, the sky in the east started to lighten up with pink and orange. The sun was rising. Relief, so powerful it almost made me dizzy, washed over me. I'd made it. I survived the night on the Devil's Highway. But then I remembered the last rule. Rule 7. 7. The sun will rise twice. Only the second one is real. It was a trick, a final cruel lie. That beautiful dawn wasn't real. I had to keep driving, pushing through the bone-deep exhaustion, the hope turning to ash in my mouth. I drove straight into that false sunrise, and just like the rules said, the light started to warp and fade. The colors dissolved back into the same oppressive, inky black night. The road ahead was still dark. It wasn't over. I don't know how many hours passed after that, but a new light eventually started to grow in the east. This one felt different. It was cleaner, warmer. It felt real. And as the true sun finally crested the mountains, I crossed the state line into Utah. That heavy, suffocating feeling that had clung to me all night. It just lifted. I pulled over to the side of the road. My body started shaking uncontrollably, and I just cried. I delivered my load in Salt Lake and quit the next day. I never drove a long-haul route again. I sold my rig and bought a small local delivery truck. I need to be home every night now. They say they renumbered Route 666 to make it safer to get rid of the curse. But I know the truth. The numbers on a sign don't matter. The evil is still out there waiting in the dark. Sometimes, on quiet nights, even in the safety of my own house, I'll hear a faint tapping on a window. And I know, a part of me never really left the devil's highway. So if you ever find yourself on that lonely stretch of US 491 after dark, and you see a silent gas station promising a full tank and a moment's rest, just keep on driving. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like and subscribe for more tales from the dark side of the road. Let me know in the comments, have you ever seen something you couldn't explain on a lonely highway?